The topic is reflecting the absolute value functions, N18. All right, given the function graphed here in your original points, we're going to take the original points and reflect different parts of them. Okay? In example number 1, notice where the absolute value bars are. Okay, remember f of x stands for y. So if I have bars around f of x, what that really means is the absolute value of y. Okay? So when you change that graph up there, it's not going to look the same. All the y values are going to go positive. Okay, so look at your original points. 7, 1, and 4 are already positive. Those values are not going to change. Okay, but the negative 3's need to go positive. Okay, so it's going to be, the new point is positive 4, positive 3, positive 8, positive 3. Only the y's changed. Whenever you see the absolute value bars around the whole function, that really means absolute value of y. Okay, now before you try to graph it, I want you to look at the original graph. Just the y. Yeah, if the 7 was negative, it would have changed to positive. Yes, so look at your graph. Okay, the x-axis is actually what's separating all my negative and positive y values. Okay, so every point above the x-axis is not going to change. This part of the graph is going to look the same. Okay, so let's graph that part first, including this part over here. We need to graph that as well, even though those points are not listed in the table. Okay, so let's graph all those original points that are above. So negative 6, positive 7, negative 4, positive 1, and negative 1, positive 4. Okay, but I'm going to go ahead and graph this point here just so I can erase part of it. Watch what I do. I'm going to go over 4, down to negative 1, I'm sorry, that's 4, 4, negative 3. I was thinking something else. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3. Okay, now I'm actually going to erase the graph that's below x. Okay, even though these points were not in the table all the way to approximately x equals 1.5 or so, those need to stay there. Okay, and then I'm going to graph the two new points that I came up with, positive 4, positive 3, and then I'm going to connect that point there, and then positive 8, positive 3. So notice how my graph changed. The whole shape of it changed. Every value for the function that was negative came up above the x-axis. All right, on example 2, notice where the absolute value bars are. The absolute value bars are around x. So that means every original x value that was negative now has to be positive. Okay? So instead of being below the x-axis, now I'm going to look at the y-axis. Okay? Every x value that I graph has to be on the right side, where all my x's are positive. I cannot have anything graphed over here. That's negative. Okay, so look at my original points. Which points are going to change? Negative 6 is going to be positive 6, and the y stays the same. Negative 4, it's going to become positive 4. Negative 1, going to become positive 1. These 2 points get to stay the same because they were already positive. Okay, to graph f of absolute value of x, this time we're going to take, and we're going to keep all of these points. Okay, and we're going to change all of these x's on the left-hand side to make them positive now. Okay, so when I go to graph the new graph, I'm going to graph all these that I'm going to keep first. Okay, plus I want to temporarily graph that one point that connects, okay, that good point, so that I can keep part of the good graph. So here's what that's going to look like. The 2 points we're going to keep are positive 4, negative 3, positive 8, negative 3. Okay? And then I'm going to graph negative 1, positive 4 temporarily. Okay, whenever I connect those, it goes behind the y-axis a little tiny bit, and I can't have that. But I do need to keep all these other points, even though they're not written down in the table. I need to keep the positive x value. So I'm just going to come over here, erase that little portion that goes behind the y-axis, because that makes all negative x's. Okay? And then I'll just continue to graph my 3 new points. Okay, so I've got the point 6, 7. And then I've got the point 4, 1. And I've got the point 1, 4 right here. So let's see how that went here. It looks really strange, doesn't it? But think about your original graph. This point right here comes over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, that's that point. Okay, this one just hops over and comes right here. So it's going to bounce over like that when you connect them. Instead of graphing from here to here, we're going to bounce over to here. Okay, this point here, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then this one was up here. Did I get those in the right order? So this point was connected to this point. Let's go back and look at them. This point was connected to this one, so these 2 points need to be connected now. 6, 7, and 4, 1. So those 2 need to be connected. And then these 2 need to be connected. Like that. And then that one needs to be connected. Okay, just quickly, so we can have a way to remember the rules here. Absolute value of x, no negative x's. No negative x's. Okay, in that first example, no negative y's. Okay, that's the rule of thumb. If you're having trouble with the picture at first, concentrate on the ordered pairs only. Okay? Summarizing our information, if the graph of a function is reflected across the x-axis, okay, that means that the points that were on the top are going to go down, the points that were below are going to go up. So how does the graph change? Okay. Okay. If you reflect your function across the y-axis, what happens? Change the x values. If you reflect across the origin, change both. Change x, change y. Okay, what if it's reflected across y equals x? Switch. Okay, the absolute value of f of x also means the absolute value of y. So change, well, let's write it this way. No negative y's. And then the absolute value, or the function of the absolute value of x, means no negative x's. Okay, if you'll memorize this chart, these problems would be pretty easy for you. Okay, example 3, graph the absolute value of the function and then the function of the absolute value on the grids below. Okay, so here is your original graph. Okay, and if I graph the absolute value, what's going to be the change in that graph? No negative what? No negative y's. So look how many y's are negative. All of these points down here are negative, aren't they? They all have to go up. Everything that was already above x stays above x. Okay? So let's graph it. This point here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 2, 3, 4, 5. So negative 6. Instead of going down negative 5, we're going to go positive 5. Okay? The next point was negative 4, negative 3. Now it's going to be negative 4, positive 3. Okay? Negative 1, negative 3 is now going to be negative 1, positive 3. So far that's what we've got. What's that? I'm not sure I understand that question. No negative y value, so everything below 0 has to go above 0. Okay? Now this point is already above 0. But I'm going to go ahead and graph this right here so that I can get all my points up there. This point right here is where everything changed, isn't it? About one little bit past here. And then it's going to bounce back up to the points that were already there. So 3, 2 is going to stay. Okay. And then this point that was below 0 over here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, negative 4. It's going to go positive 4 now. Okay. This point is going to go up to positive 4. Okay. But this point right here needs to stay there. Okay. So that's at x equals 4 approximately. So that point needs to stay there. And then this point right here needs to stay. Okay, and that's approximately at 8. So that point needs to stay. And then 10, 3. Okay, now we're going to graph the function of the absolute value of x, which means no negative x values. Okay, so if I cover up the left side, I know I can't graph any of those. All right, we're going to go ahead and keep the original points that were on the right-hand side, and I'm also going to include this little point right here about negative 1.5. Okay, and then I'm going to go over to the graph and get all of the x's that were behind. Okay, so instead of negative 1, negative 3, I'm going to go across over here, positive 1, negative 3. And graph those.